while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
There's like a Yoruba proverb. I'm going to try to loosely translate it. And it's whoever wants to turn lies into truth will war with the mouth, right? So when I'm watching J.D. Vance sit on Turning Point USA's desk, filling in for Charlie Kirk, and I hear him, go ahead with the propaganda, go ahead and repeat the same talking points. Right when he says, our side, right? Our side. Dog, who is our side? You're the vice president of the United States. You're not the mayor of a city. You're not the governor of a state. You're not a senator. You're the vice president of these United States. Now, what does that have to do with the proverb last week? The lie that was told was where the divisiveness was coming from. A divisiveness, the left is divided, the left is divided us. And you just let them talk long enough, because when you're trying to turn lie into truth, you have to keep talking. But the other saying, which is not a Yoruba proverb, you let somebody talk long enough, they will tell on themselves. Right? Who is our side? You're showing within an elected position, right? Within the position which you now have to govern the entire United States, you're still using words like our side. You're still actively in campaign mode, which is a form of division. That's the type of person I listen for little shit. When you send, when the president of the United States, vice president of the United States, send a bunch of military members, our servicemen and women, into war, what side are they on? You're still catering to a base. You're still. And the reality is that at the core of this, right, is because they can't go into governing mode. I have a few reasons why, but I haven't figured it all out yet. They're constantly in campaign mode. They're constantly in fight mode. Right? Like, I can excuse, emotions and narratives from podcasters, maybe governors from a certain state that's mostly red, maybe senators that represent a certain state, their constituents, representatives. Okay. The vice president of the United States, who the hell is our side?
Hi guys, welcome to yet another video. It's Ndagere here. Thanks for clicking on today's video. Guys, this took me out. This took a lot of people out. So the Vice President of America, J.D. Vance, went to the Charlie Kirk, podcast or show. And I assume, or I think, as the Vice President, if you're given this platform and this is your first time to speak to the public about, let's say, the incident that happened, I expect you to, call out the person that did the act, right? But also find a way of uniting people that you are governing, but also put close or put information that brings in unity to everybody that is American, right? But also condemn these acts and condemn, the sides or both sides for committing or participating in this kind of things, because it's not helping everybody or anyone in America. But no, this man went on this podcast or this show and was calling out the Democrats, was calling out the left, that it is a problem, which I find ridiculous, that instead of addressing the issue of gun violence, of guns that is out of control, that it needs to be regulated, he is putting the blame on the left and saying my side is okay but the other side is not, which is insane to me. Like, what do you mean your side? You are the Vice President of America. You are in control, that you govern everybody in America. So the question to me is, if America is to send troops to some other country, for example, or to fight for America, do those troops only fight and protect one specific group, or they have to protect Americans? That's what I want to understand. If it is to put laws in America, do those laws only affect his side, or everybody in America. Like, these are things that people need to listen to and use common sense to understand who really wants unity in America and who don't. And if you listen to this man, for one, I don't think these people want unity, because you cannot be the vice president of a country and talk about my side. My side is this, the other side is not. You are supposed to create and promote unity amongst everybody in your country that you govern. What do you mean by my side? I do not think Kamala Harris would ever get on the platform and utter out such a statement, but I digress. Listen to what Americans are saying. Actually, some of them want him out of office, because this is ridiculous.
So Vice President J.D. Vance went on the Charlie Kirk show and said this.
While our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers.
I'm going to pull up the numbers. What I found is on congress.gov. It is from a verified source, ADL. Domestic extremists related killing in the U.S. by perpetrator affiliation from 2015 to 2024. It says right wing is responsible for the majority of the killings. Right wing extremists take up 76%, while the left takes up 4%. Instead of calling for unity, instead of calling for the violence to stop on both sides, not just one, he comes out and says that. This shows me that they do not want unity. They want division. For anyone who comes out here and spews that nonsense and propaganda, get your facts straight first. Honestly, it's not that hard to Google.
What an embarrassment this is. The Vice President of the United States of America went to that dude's podcast, sat down in his chair, told his team to film so he can say some shit to the nation. The Vice President of the United States. This shit would never fly in Europe. I promise you, I'm from there. And if it did, the next day he'd be out of office. He wouldn't be allowed to run ever again in any public office if he did some shit like this in Europe. This is a fucking embarrassment. Vice President J.D. Vance steps in for late Charlie Kirk to host Activists podcast. Again, what the hell are you doing in here? You're the Vice fucking President of the United States. Why are you fucking hosting this motherfucker's podcast? This shit makes zero sense. The current timeline that we're living in is astronomically insane. I can't put it into any other words. Insanity. I don't want to hear a fucking word about Kamala Harris's presidency ever again. Because I bet you everything that I have, Kamala Harris would never do this.
I'm starting to really wonder if Republicans and the right are trying to incite a civil war in this country. And that's the only thing I can think of would be the reason that J.D. Vance will come on as a new podcast host and start by saying persons responsible for the assassination that happened last week is the left and a left extremist, even though we know this person is a right extremist, part of a fringe group called the Groypers, who think that CK wasn't conservative enough.
Of course, we have to make sure that the killer is brought to justice, and importantly, we have to talk about this incredibly destructive movement of left-wing extremism that has grown up over the last few years, and I believe is part of the reason why Charlie was killed by an assassin's bullet. We're going to talk about how to dismantle that and how to bring real unity.
He then goes on to prove to us that Republicans just lie for no reason. He says that when he was at Disney World, that the left, this mysterious left, were yelling at him and yelling at his kids.
My wife and I decided to take our kids to Disneyland one weekend, but there was a loud and very cool minority that would shout at my children, who were 8, 5, and 3, whenever they got the opportunity. "You should disown your dad, you little shit," one middle-aged woman yelled at my 5-year-old. "Tell the Secret Service to protect the Constitution, not your father," screamed another. Are these women violent? Probably not. Are they deranged? Certainly. And while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
But he, back in April, went online and bragged about how Secret Service shut the park down, so it was only him and his family, and he apologized to the park goers for not allowing them to be in the park.
So we had the island to ourselves, which was very cool. I'd never been to Disneyland.
They were shutting down the Disney World one.
Yeah, that's sorry to all the people who were at Disneyland for the longer lines, but we had a very good time.
So which is it? The left was cursing your kids out, or you had the park to yourself? It's just a very scary time to be alive. Like, I even contemplated not even making this video or talking about this subject anymore, and I think I still won't, just because I've received a lot of death threats. My name put on like one of those doxing lists. There was another protest in Huntington Beach, California, which is so close to where I'm at, and it was bigger than the last one of white men fight back. And it's like the rhetoric that they have made themselves believe is so unreal, because who are white men fighting back against? White men? Who is the right trying to blame on the left? A right person who was on the right? Things. For the first time, I even thought like, oh my God, like these streets are going to be crazy in California. Like, how is there a neo-Nazi rally in California? But it's because of stuff like this. The vice president just came online and doubled down rhetoric that is a lie, a known lie, in order to incite violence against a specific group of people.
It is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
So JD Vance just hosted the late Charlie Kirk show, and he used the moment to try to divide the country even further. Not only is it disgusting, he just told a massive lie. And as is so often the case, what he just said, the exact opposite is actually true. This study was just released by someone at the Cato Institute, a right-wing think tank, and you'll see that even they acknowledge that right-wing driven murders are far greater over the past decades consistently than left-wing. Vance also used his time on the podcast to encourage people to try to get those critical of Kirk fired, telling people to call their employers.
When you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination.
Can you imagine the reaction if Kamala Harris did anything close to that as VP? Absolute insanity.
Can we get any more dystopian than the vice president of the US, I'm so sorry, travel enthusiast and now podcast host, is taking over the Charlie Kirk show? When I read that this was gonna happen, I just really didn't believe it, because exactly, my dog is also confused, because again, what? And then let's go on to the contents of today's show, where he incited violence on citizens. So the vice president of our country is now is running a podcast, and also very divisive rhetoric, extremely, actually. And I think we're underreacting personally. And also, just where does he have the time? Because not only is he constantly on vacation, now he's as a podcast host. And, if this is what it entails to be a vice president, I would like to sign up. I've been to 51 countries, so I've already been traveling, but now I get to do it on tax dollars, because why spend it on Medicaid or, I don't know, SNAP and helping the people? Nah, I'll get to travel for free. I used to actually have my own podcast, so I'm overqualified for this, which means now in hindsight that I would never get this, because this is the most underqualified administration.
As you've heard in the video, that is what people had to say. I'm still flabbergasted. I'm still in shock how a vice president has to go on a podcast, has to go on a show of people. Okay, I know that's his side, as he says, but he's a freaking vice president. If it was Kamala Harris that did this, oh my goodness, we would not rest on this social media. We would not rest on the news. It would be put everywhere on how racist she is, on how she wants to bring war to the country, on how she's a terrible black woman, how she's a terrible being. But here we have a vice president, not just anybody. That is interesting. Actually, it is scary. It is scary. And he was talking about how Charlie did not say that black women are dumb. Charlie said black women don't have the capacity to pass and go to places, because there are some beings that don't have knowledge or brains. They needed affirmative action for them to access places or DEI. Probably that's why they were rolling down DEI, or fighting every sector, every place that involved black people. Because even when we look into the job sector, it's mostly black women that were cut off. Why? Because it is a challenge to palm people. They cannot stand seeing black people excel better than them. They always have to put issues. Guys, this is what Charlie actually said, that black women don't have knowledge unless there's affirmative action. And the vice president is defending it like that's not what he said. People are taking it out of context. Maybe I'm also taking it out of context, but let me know, guys, in the comments, because I'm confused myself.
The writer accuses Charlie of saying, and I quote, "Black women do not have brain processing power to be taken seriously." But if you go and watch the clip, the very clip she links to, you realize he never said anything like that. He never uttered those words.
If we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
Yeah, that's what he said. That is what he said. I am, oh my God. Guys, this is not even funny. It's not funny, but I just can't help it. I really can't help it. The fact that they think black people cannot, access places because of some benefits that we have clearly been seeing, that it's mostly PAM people that have been benefiting from most of the government sponsorships or government help, government aid. They have been the ones that were benefiting more than anybody else, because for them it's just a free pass. But hey, no, black women and black people just go and steal, white people's slots. So that's why probably white people don't have enough education or, enough jobs, which is insane. How? Guys, this is the vice president and he's defending this man. Yes, I know they were friends, but why are you picking a side as a vice president? Like I asked before, if let's say Trump puts tariffs in America, do they only affect the right or they affect everybody? When, prices go up, when immigrants are kicked out, when farmers cannot access, let's say, funds, does it only affect the right or it affects everybody? When, oh wow, this is insane. And the fact that he also said that the shooter was from the left, when, I shared videos where the grandmother of the shooter, Kirk, said, don't insult us, call us everything else, but never call us Democrats. She stood on business. The vice president is coming here to say that the shooter was on the left. Guys, these people want division in America, and they know that that's what makes them money. So the fact that black people are not reacting, and they're also trying to bring in black people in the conversation, as he was trying to paint still black people like they are a problem, is wild to me. These people just rely on black people, and the fact that black people remove their energy from everything, they have no one to blame but themselves, but they can't, because accountability, and white people are complete opposites. They never want to come in contact with anything that makes them look or take in accountability. That's wild, considering their history and where or how we are seeing them today sponsoring wars. Insane. But like I said, Kamala Harris would never utter out these kind of statements. It would never happen. It would never, ever happen. That is it. Guys, yeah, that's all for me in this video. Let me know what you think about this. Also, I like that these days, PAM people are coming out strong and calling out their own, because they are also getting enough of this BS. They can also see through the lines that something is fishy, and the fish is inside our house as PAM people that we need to fix and clear out before it's too late.